Good morning everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's Strategic Dairy Farm webinar. We'd like to thank William Baillie for hosting us today. He is our all-year-round calving system based up in Lanarkshire in Scotland. For those of you listening live, I would quite like to just start with some housekeeping. To start off with, everyone will be muted. We will take questions throughout, so to send in your questions, please click on the orange arrow in the box to the right-hand side of your screen. It will show the control panel. In here, you'll see a white arrow down the bottom that says questions. Type your questions, send, and then we'll be able to ask them out for you. Also, if you're looking to collect your Dairy Pro points today, please put your name, email and postcode also in the chat function. Now, a little thing to note today, AHDB change strategy, have your say over the next 5 years. It's your levy, it's your AHDB for the dairy side as well, so there'll be a link in the email that follows the webinar which will prompt you to get involved and have your own say in what we do. Also, now for today, I would like to thank William Baillie for sharing with us lots of information again and for hosting us and for his time. We're also joined by Goldie from Billington. Jimmy has worked in Scotland and all over the UK for a very long time, and he is just fantastic, and hopefully you'll get some ideas of what you can improve on farm today, and hopefully we can leave William with some ideas as well. And I am Sophie Brewster. I work for AHDB Dairy in Scotland. I cover knowledge exchange, so hoping to help you improve what you do in your business, have confidence to make good business decisions, and if there's anything else we can help you with, we're here for you, and it'd be great to keep in touch. Just go through a little bit of what we're the plan for today. Feeding focus, and we'll start with an update from Willie, who has been 2 and a bit years now with Strategic Dairy Farm. This is his final year, so we'll hear what he's been up to since the last webinar he had, and a little bit background to the farm as well for those of you who don't know him. We'll then hand over to Goldie. Jimmy currently works with Billington across the UK. He is going to deliver some kind of key profit drivers for the all-year-round calving herd, and yeah, hopefully create some good discussion today. He will also be delivering his observations. He went to Hillhead just before Christmas, had a good look round with William, and they looked at the feeding system. This was going to be a meeting on feeding, but everything relates to feeding, so we've tied in a few other things as well today. And finally, we'll end with a bit on where to focus and improve, not only for William, because he's our host, but also for you guys listening. Hope you'll pick up some pointers where you can go home and think, yep, I'm going to pick up on that and improve. And everything we do today is available to watch again, and please just keep in touch. If you get any questions you think of after the webinar, please feel free to contact myself or Jimmy. Hand over to Jimmy now. Hand over to William now, please.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's been keeping well. We have been fairly fortunate here at Hillhead that all family and staff members have managed to keep well lately and stay safe. So I'll start with just giving you a quick introduction to Hillhead for anybody who hasn't been here. Hillhead is a 400-acre dairy farm which is owned. We also rent a further 200 acres which is used as a young stock breeding unit. We're obviously we're all year-round calving. We're currently running about 400 cows. They are housed 24/7 and milked 3 times a day. We feed a full TMR ration, so there is no cake or concentrates fed individually. Everything's fed through the TMR. We also zero graze grass in the summer to the cows. And we do all our own, most of our own field work is all carried out in-house, silage work, and most of the slurry and the tractor work. And we also rear Jersey heifers for another unit that we've got, which has got Jersey cows on it, so the young stock are all reared between Hillhead and the rented unit as well. So that's just a quick overview of what we do. Update from our last meeting. The last meeting we had was in July, and it was with James Breen focusing on mastitis. Now, since that meeting, the mastitis is we've continued to improve. We're almost hitting our target for our 12 months rolling. We're at 21 cases per 100 cows, where we were targeting to get below 20. And actually in the last 3 months, we're running at 14 cases per 100 cows. So things are continuing to improve in that. And I put most of that down to, since the meeting, having a lot more focus on parlour hygiene. On the staff side, our main staff is pretty much unchanged. We have taken on a new apprentice. We like to have an apprentice. We've tried over the last few years to have an apprentice here every year for a year's experience. So we have a new girl started there through the summer this year, and she's really refreshing to have about the place, as she's constantly smiling and always very cheery, which is quite infectious, I think, and rubs onto other people. Our part-time staff, we have a team of part-time staff we use mainly for doing evening milkings. We've had a couple of changes there. We had one guy who he was doing 12 nights a fortnight for us, and he left. He was getting a fair age, and I think it was just getting a bit much for him. And we advertised on social media for night milkers, and we were absolutely overwhelmed with applicants, the most applicants I've ever had, and I had I would say of a high quality as well. So we made the decision that we're taking on 3 part-time people to just try and have everybody working less hours and less shifts. And the 3 new members of staff we all taken on were all female. So between that and our new apprentice being female, we're now out of our total of 10 staff we have on the farm. We have 5 male and 5 female. On the general farm, we've continued through the summer there with our reseeding policy that we set out when we started this programme, to say that we were aiming to do a lot more reseeding, and so we've almost completely reseeded the whole farm in the last 4 years now. And through the summer there, we actually reseeded 112 acres in total. So we've only got 30 to do this summer, and that'll be the whole farm having been reseeded. On the cow side of it, our cow numbers, our target when we started this was to get to 400 cows, because that's what we felt we could accommodate. Our cow numbers at the moment are now 394, so we're very close to hitting our target of 400 cows. We have currently about 253 heifers on the ground. That's from day old to point of calving. So as the last few years, we've been running a cull rate of about 20%. There's still plenty of heifers coming through that will allow us to increase cow numbers slightly more, and we'll either then can make the choice to cull a few more cows, or maybe sell a couple of surplus heifers. The cows have milked fairly well this year so far, through the start of the winter, and we're currently averaging 34 kilos. It's not the most we've ever done, but I'm fairly pleased with that. But I'm also very pleased with our milk quality. I would say it's probably the best it's ever been, as we're currently running at 4.4% fat and 3.4% protein, which is really pleasing. Fertility has also been going well. Our preg rate is now up to 26%, and the calving, we've had very, very few problems with calving. We're working away calving cows pretty much all the time. As we've been using nothing but sex semen now for the last 18 months, the fact it's very nice that they're either black and white heifer calves or they're beef calves that are worth quite a premium, especially at the moment, as calves have been selling very well. On the one and a bit of a downside we had through the autumn was with a bit of calf health. We had a bit of problems with some calf scour, and we actually lost a couple of calves and had some more that had pretty poor growths. We feel that with a bit of investigation that the problem was crypto, and we feel we're getting on top of it. We've got on top of it now, just with better hygiene, making sure all the hutches and the pads are washed and disinfected between calves. In the back end, when we're under a bit of pressure, because we rear the Jersey calves from the other farm, and it's block calving, so it calves in the autumn and the spring. So we're really a hutch was getting a calf gene out it, and another one put in it straight away. So we're a bit less pressure on the now, but we're fuel with it with a improved cleaning and hygiene and a recap and colostrum quality for everybody to remember how important it is to keep the colostrum clean, test it, and get the colostrum into these calves quick. So we're hoping now we've got on top of it that when the spring calves start arriving in the beginning of March, that we're on top of that and we can maintain where we are. The other thing that we have been doing that has been taking a bit of my time and Jennifer's time over the summer and through into the autumn was we started a bit of diversification with a milk vending business. So in the summer we ordered 2 milk vending machines which were to be sited off farm. Unfortunately these machines have not arrived yet. There seems to have been quite a lot of delays in the manufacturer, and but as we have got the pasteurising unit up and running and we've done our milk tests and all the requirements for the environmental health, that we have started selling bottled milk from the farm. We're just bottling it up and selling it, and it's been going fairly well. We're selling more milk every week, but we hope these machines will be coming in the next few weeks, and once we get them sited, the sales should start to increase significantly after that. So that's a bit of an update from where we are, and I'll just hand you back to Sophie now.
Thank you very much, Willie. As always, you're just keeping on top of lots of little things as they come and approach to you. And good luck with the vending as well. I know it's been a long wait, so good luck with it. As I meant to say, questions are also anonymous, so feel free to be as brutal as you want throughout the session. And I'd like to hand over now to Jimmy. Jimmy, thank you very much for your time today, and keep the questions coming for both the guys here, Willie and Jimmy. Thank you.
Thanks, Sophie. Good morning, everyone. Can I just check that you can see my screen?
I can't see it yet.
Can you see anything yet, Sophie?
No, patiently waiting. Sorry, Jimmy, can't see it. Jimmy, have you accepted the notification to share?
I thought I had. Hannah, could you maybe just redo it to let me share it, please?
Have to do a fair bit of improv if we don't have your presentation. It's been sent again.
For some reason, it's not. It's not working. Just.
Okay. We'll patiently wait, Jimmy. Don't worry.
Apologies about this.
That's us. I can see you now, Jimmy. Thank you very much.
That's good. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Apologies about that. We're all getting used to doing seminars online now rather than face-to-face, and it's always much better trying to do it face-to-face. I did have the pleasure of going to Hillhead before Christmas. I always enjoy meeting up with William and having a look around Hillhead, and we just walked around the whole farm and tried to pick up on various different things that we could see, and you can hear from William this morning quite a lot going on. I always think it's interesting when we start looking at how do we compare a farm, what do we look at, what do we look for, and I've just put a list of different things there that we can look for to try and compare how are we performing. Is it down to age at first calving? Is it milk from forage? Is it yield, milk quality that William was talking about? Is it all about profit, etc.? So what are the different things that we need to look at? AHDB have, over the last couple of years, been developing their optimal dairy systems with their key performance indicators. You'll find that on their website, and there's some really useful numbers there, just looking at the different systems and what we need to be aiming for. So you can see on here we've got preg rates, age at first calving, feed costs depending on yield, average daily lifetime yield, overhead costs, etc. And I think it's always very useful just to look at how individual businesses are performing against some of these targets and what we're achieving. As far as I'm concerned, what drives profit in a farm, and we look at all sorts of different things in terms of cost control, milk price, etc., that we look at on a daily basis. But the things that make the biggest difference on farm, I've got them in here as your effing costs. So forage, feed, fertility, and family as in young stock are the things that have the biggest impact on what the profit at the end of the day is on a dairy farm. So what we did at Hillhead was look at these 4 sections and just discuss with William what he's already doing, how that compares with some of the KPIs, and just where he's looking to go forward. And William will pitch in as we go through this, just in terms of what's happening at Hillhead just now. So to start off, looking at forage, how much milk are we getting from forage? The average for the UK is probably about 2,000 litres of milk per cow from forage, but the range we see through the herds we look at is anything from 0 from forage. So all the milk, the cow maybe gets maintenance from forage, but all the milk is from concentrate feed, up to probably towards a maximum of about 4,000 litres from forage. And currently at Hillhead, William's achieving about 4,000 litres from forage. What we'd like to do just now is do a bit of a poll of everybody that's joined the seminar so far, just to see what your milk from forage is, just to find out the range that are online this morning. So Sophie, can I just pass back to you?
Thank you, Jamie. Okay guys, you should see a poll up in front of you now. How much milk from forage are you achieving? So if you could select one of the 4 options, 0 to 1,500 litres, 1,500 to 3,000 litres, 3,000 litres or more, or if you don't know, click don't know. It's just so that we know our audience who we're talking to, and yeah, just a little bit of interaction for you to do. Okay, we'll just wait another couple of seconds and then we'll get all our votes in and we'll share the results with you. Okay, here we go. Oh, fantastic. So big range there, Jimmy. Can you see it as well, or would you like me to read them out?
I can't see it, Sophie, so I'm hoping you'll read it out.
Okay, I better read them out then. So the results have come back, 0 to 1,500 litres, 10%, 1,500 to 3,000, 40%, 3,000 litres or more, 26%, and then there's a 24% of don't knows. Thank you very much, Jimmy.
Okay, thanks, Sophie. Thanks everyone. Thanks for joining in. And yeah, Sophie says a wide range there of forage, milk from forage, and it's an important figure to look at, an important figure to know. It varies very much from farm to farm, different circumstances, and what forage you're using and how much you're getting to cows. So a little bit to start with, how much forage can a cow eat? Just leading on from that, again, very variable. Is it as much as you give her? What's also important as well is how much you have available. I know I've worked out milk from forage opportunities in some farms, and what we find is there's not enough silage and not enough grass on the farm to increase the milk from forage because we've got a high stocking rate. So all the circumstances are different in terms of what we're trying to achieve from milk from forage. Another thing that's very important as well, and we find quite a range of forage intake, and partly because of the statement at the bottom there, is depends what else you feed her. Because if we aim for a high concentrate input diet, then that cow, she can only eat so much in a day. She then doesn't have the opportunity to eat more forage because we're putting too much concentrate in. So I think it's important to take a step back sometimes and just look at how much forage is available and how much we can get into them. So when we look at that, our target is to try and get 12 kilograms of dry matter of forage per head per day into a dairy cow, assuming a Holstein, obviously a smaller cow might be slightly less than that, but we want to try and get about 12 kilos of dry matter into them. The range we see is huge. We've got some herds that are only achieving 7 kilograms of dry matter forage now. In our mind, that's just not enough. Dairy cows are ruminants, they function with forage, so we want to get as much forage in as possible. And we've got some herds that go up as far as 14 kilograms dry matter per head per day. And you can see Hillhead at the minute is achieving pretty much up at the top end at 13.8 kilograms of forage, and the reason they're achieving a high milk from forage is because we're getting this very high intake of forage overall. What I tried to then look at is putting that into perspective, looking at how we can achieve different rates of milk from forage. In the left-hand column, I've got the amount of concentrate we're fed, and this is based on a herd averaging 30 litres across the board. So not an individual cow, just the herd and overall. So looking at the concentrate level from a low level down to 8 kilos up to a possibility of 14 kilograms of concentrate for that 30 litre herd. Now, if you work your way along the column, I've worked out how much forage dry matter intake that's likely to allow. So the top one, if we've a low level of concentrate, we might manage a 13-14 kilograms of concentrate into them, of forage into them. And as we increase the concentrate, the opportunity for forage intake will decline. And if we're feeding a high level of concentrate, we're down at the bottom at 7 or 8 kilograms of dry matter of forage. The column second from right is showing the range of annual milk from forage. So at the bottom we've got just over 100 litres of milk from forage, so high concentrate and less reliance on forage. And as we increase through the average, you can see there is probably between 11 and 12 kilograms of concentrate, achieving a 2,000 litres of milk from forage, and we can increase further up as the concentrate level comes down. We get more forage into them. We're up at the levels where Hillhead are, around about 4,000 litres from forage. That obviously depends on the overall milk yield. William, as I said at the introduction, is probably doing about 11,000 litres, but he's managing to get a huge amount of forage into them to achieve that and getting high milk from forage. The columns third from the left is showing the daily target milk from forage. So in the winter, a lot of herds are doing 5 and 6 litres from forage as an average. But over the year, whether it's zero grazed grass or conserved forage, if we can get an average of 10, 11 kilograms of litres of milk, per day from forage, then we're starting to get towards the 4,000 litres total. I think some of that is quite a challenge, and we can see from the results there is a range there depending on circumstances, but I think certainly something that we want to always aim for to get that high milk from forage.
Jimmy, we've had a question through. How do you work out your milk from forage?
Okay, yep. Milk from forage is worked out by difference almost, because we look at what the milk yield is produced and the energy taken to produce that milk, and then deduct the amount of concentrate that's fed. So when the concentrate is usually the known information. We don't always know how much silage they're eating. So we work out the amount of concentrate fed, the amount of energy that's contributing to the cow, and we deduct that from the energy from milk, and the difference is worked out as the milk from forage. So it's milk less milk from concentrate effectively. And
also another question, do you count moist feeds as a forage?
Okay, we'll just come on to that, if that's okay, because that's probably quite a strong debate, and I think we might end up with a to that, but we'll just come on to that if that's okay.
Didn't know whether to ask that one or not, but there we go.
A very, very valid question, and we'll just come on to it. And the reason we'll come on to it is because what are the forages that are fed at Hillhead? So when we look here, we've got pictures of the silage clamps. So we've got first, fourth and third cut silage. We've also got whole crop in the clamps on the left. And just to go along with your question, Sophie, Brewer's grains, draff are fed, as well as fodder beet. They are included in the calculation because, and William will discuss this just in a minute, because they are part of the forage in the farm, the same as the fodder beet. Now, they're purchased forages in this instance, but they are being forage for the calculation. So we'll just go through the amounts of forage for each one, and then William can comment just on his objectives in terms of forage. So a lot of numbers on here, but we just starting in the top left-hand corner. Cows currently are getting 6 kilograms of fourth cut, which is just over a kilo of dry matter, 8 kilograms of first cut, which is 3.2 kilograms of dry matter, 4 kilograms of third cut, and then 5 kilograms of whole crop. So that's the clamped forage. They're then getting 6 kilograms of Brewer's Grains draff, and they're then also getting 10 kilograms of fodder beet, which is 1.8 kilograms of dry matter. And all that adds up to 13.7 kilograms of dry matter per head per day. William, do you want to come in here and just explain a little bit about the forages on farm and the priorities to drive good quality silage?
Yeah, well, grass silage is the main forage that we feed. So we've got a lot of emphasis into trying to make a good quality grass silage. So we're doing a 4-cut system, aiming to cut the grass every kind of 5 weeks throughout the summer. Obviously, that can be weather dependable. But yeah, we're trying to maximise grass silage. The amounts of each that are fed really are depending on the layers that are in the clamp. So it's just sort of going back the clamps at an even speed. So our first priority when trying to make good quality a grass silage has to be the grass. And that's one of the main reasons that we've been in a major reseeding policy over the farm. We're growing quite a lot of cereals and had quite a bit of Italian ryegrass in, which we found we could make very good quality first cut silage, but became quite challenging as the season progressed, as it didn't allow for, if the weather window wasn't there to make silage, that it could go wrong. You know, if you were a week late in getting to it, it was the quality really deteriorated. So we've now got this year all the silage area will be it's a perennial ryegrasses, mainly late and intermediate heading ryegrasses, and I've been really pleased with since we went on to these grass mixes, how we can get the quality silage through all the cuts. The second cut is always the most challenging one, I would say, because I tend to feel when you get into June that grass just wants to put a seed head up before it can really come with a lot of bulk. I think one of the other things that I found in the last few years very beneficial is we're doing all our own silage in-house. We've got our own forage wagon and our own mowers. With Ted and Rake all the silage to try and get the dry matters up a bit. And this enables us, if there is a weather window there, we can just go and do silage. You're not waiting on someone coming to do it for you. But so I find that beneficial. We feed a lot of Brewer's Grains, mainly because I think it's good value for money. It's cheaper than concentrates, and I do see it as a silage substitute. We are for this area, I would say we're fairly well stocked. That says we're now a cow per acre here at Hillhead, so growing enough silage for feeding these cows without any Brewer's Grains would be quite a challenge. We're feeding fodder beet this year. I think fodder beet is a very good feed. We have grown it in the past, but again, as stocking rates have went up, it was one of the things that we decided to cut out. And we're buying it this year. I think it's fairly well priced, and we are a bit tight for silage. Going back to, you can try to feed high level. When you're trying to feed high levels of forage, you do need a lot of it. And as I said, we reseeded 112 acres last summer, and all of that land was out of production at some point through the summer because we were reseeding. We have a lot of land down by the river, and it's good growing land, but it does flood in the winter, so we need to be careful. We can't do an autumn reseed on it because if it flooded over the winter, it wouldn't survive it. So it has got to be kind of reseeded mid-season, which is a disadvantage because it does take it out of production for a spell through the summer. So that's a kind of rundown. I do like the whole crop as well. I think it just adds a wee bit extra in the diet, and another forage in there helps with intakes, and it is it's something that's very consistent. You know, you can get the same quality pretty much year on year, and plenty of dry matter, higher in dry matter, which helps if silage quality, if you get caught in the rain and some of the silage is a wee bit wetter.
Willie, I've had a question come in on the reseeding. I know you've kind of covered it quite well, but they were also asking, what is your benefit of reseeding protocol on farm regarding silage quality? I know you touched a little bit on having less silage because it was out of production, and also what is the cost benefit of it so far?
I think the cost benefit is massive in return on investment for reseeding. You know, these young reseed grasses, they outperform the older lays considerably, and it's just getting that, you know, newer grasses all the time make better quality. And I do feel with the seed mixture we've been sowing over the last few years, the quality of the grass and the silage, particularly later season, is so much better. And with them being later heading, it does just give us that a bit more flexibility for weather windows, because the weather, even last year, and there was a lot of talk of drought and things, after we got past end of June last year into July, the weather was still pretty catchy, and it can be, you can find yourself waiting for a couple of weeks in a weather window. So it's trying to get grass varieties that don't deteriorate too much if you go past your optimum cutting date.
And thank you very much, Willie. I've had a question, where's the second cut silage? We can't see it here. Where is it used? And and a little question on this one's for you as well, Jimmy. Forage intakes at 13.75, and on the screen we're adding up just short of that at 10. So.
No, somebody's better at arithmetic than me then. Well done.
So second cut.
Some of the second cut, there is actually some of the second cut in there beside the first cut and fourth cut, but also some of the second cut wasn't just as good quality. So some of it's actually on a separate clamp, and it's been used for feeding heifers.
Okay, good point.
Can I just add a little bit on the reseeding question as well? I think it is very valuable in terms of the return that you get back in that. Sophie's got a couple of seminars organised over the next couple of weeks, just looking at grass and forage going forward. I think going and looking at the sward to make sure that it is predominantly still ryegrass, and as William said, some of these grasses aren't always that persistent, so if they've been down for a long time, the ryegrass tends to get less dominant, so your yield is a lot less. And it's also trying to match the heading date for what you're trying to achieve. There's been quite a move towards multi-cut, and it's making sure that the grass swards match what you're trying to make for silage, so that your heading dates you achieve. William said it sometimes be quite difficult trying to make second cut in a multi-cut system. So I think just balancing all that, but certainly a definite benefit from that new swards that we can achieve better yields from generally. Okay.
That was a good wee plug there. Yeah, we've got you chatting about groundworks for grazing. A final question for you here, Jimmy. Are you convinced by multi-cut silage, just when we're on the forage point of it? Someone has made the point here, they made the best silage ever 4 times, but they've had terrible problems with pit slipping and cows transitioning onto it, plus the increased contractor bills.
Can I give you a very simple answer? Can I give you a very simple answer to that? No.
Okay.
I'm not multi-cut. I think multi-cut works in some farms, it doesn't work in all farms, and I think you need to reassess your whole forage management system and right back to what grasses you're growing and how that fits in with your whole farm. And I don't think multi-cut is necessarily for everyone, so I think we need to look at that. Just on that as well, one of the things I was noticing just looking at the photos while I was listening to William explaining the silage, there's absolute minimal waste in the top of the clamps. You can see, and I think again that's a key to high forage dry matter intakes, that the quality of forage conservation is good. And the comment about multi-cuts in terms of clamps moving, we've an enormous number of clamps moving this year in particular, and I think it is low fibre grass being put in very, very quickly, and contractors want to get it done as quickly as possible, but I think the combination of that low fibre and speed of putting in the clamp has caused quite a lot of grief this year in terms of clamp slipping.
Thank you, Jimmy.
I'll just add in there as well, when we're talking about the multi-cut, that I do feel we do our own silage, and as I said, we do it with a forage wagon, and I think that suits the system very well, because it's a slightly longer chop, so that I think that helps hold the clamp together, and as Jimmy said, the grass is not coming in as fast, so it gets more time to get it rolled in and packed. And we used for the last 2 years, we've been using a silopactor as well, and I do think that makes a big difference, just getting that grass well rolled in, especially when it's a wee bit longer and packed in. So I do feel that the grass is a lot better ensiled when it's that short leafy grass with the forage wagon is what it was with a contractor.
Yeah.
Thank you, Willie. I just had one very simple question on the fodder beet. I know you've got it in this year, but when you were growing yourself, was it washed before fed out? And when you buy it in, is it also washed before it comes in?
No, it's not washed. It goes over one of those loader cleaners. It's been lifted and it's stored in a pile, and then it's reloaded again for delivery. So it's not washed. There is a little bit. I wouldn't say there's a lot of dirt in it, but the beets they're not clean. When we did grow it, we tried washing it, and it was just so time consuming and such a pantomime that I felt it didn't really justify it. And so yeah, it's not washed. There is a little bit of dirt in it, but touch wood, so far we've had no adverse effects of it.
Thank you. Sorry, a couple of more questions just because they're relevant just now. Just checking that whole crop is whole crop wheat.
That stuff is actually a combination. It's mainly whole crop winter wheat, but there is also some spring barley in it.
Perfect. And another one to clarify, just talking about the excellent quality on your silage pits. What do you cover your silage pits with, and the additive that you've mentioned? So yeah. Right.
When we're covering silage pits, we use a cling film and then a standard black cover. And then we cover them with green nets, and you'll see some of the pictures there. There's some bales on the top of them. Anyone that's been here will know, but if you haven't, our silage pits are exceptionally exposed, and we get a lot of wind in the winter. So this year, on all the joints of the green covers, we set silage bales on them just to help hold them down. But it is mainly just a green cover, cling film, and an ordinary black sheet, and we put gravel bags right around the edges and across the middle and place it in the joints of things as well. As far as silage and additive on first cut, we used, just try to remember the name of it. It was one of these preservative ones, the kind of food grade preservatives. I can't remember what it's called now. So it went on first cut. It'll come to me at some point. The main reason we use it in first cut, it is very expensive, but I find that we're normally feeding a lot of first cut silage through the summer, and when you're feeding silage out that hasn't been in the clamp that long, and if you're feeding it in warmer weather, when with that particular additive on it, we get no problem at all with heating in the trough. So that's the main reason for it. And second, third and fourth cut silage this year had no additive. And the other thing we do when we're sealing up the clamps is we actually scatter some salt on the top surface.
Perfect. Jimmy, anything else to add, and we can move on?
No, I was just going to say a lot of attention to detail there. So yeah. And I think certainly when we look back to multi-cut, I think particularly the first cut and the last cut are the most important to get the additive right, because they're slightly harder to preserve. So I think that's really important.
No, thank you.
Okay,
guys.
so just moving on. Sorry, Sophie. So just moving on in terms of maximising milk from forage, what are the sort of key tips? So I think we've covered quite a number of them already, but just to summarise them, obviously the quality of forage in the first place, growing it, as William said, it starts off with the grass, conserving that as well to make sure it's well made, it's particularly well. Then balancing that with a diet, and I think again that's where multi-cut comes in, is trying to balance out some of these maybe slightly less preserved silages to get that to work well. Making sure we give the cow the opportunity to eat plenty of forage in terms of the rest of the diet, looking at fibre levels, looking at the rest of the concentrate that's going in there to maximise forage. Don't feed the concentrate and let the differences forage. Start off with a forage target and work it that way round. Obviously, rumen health is key to that, and that was something that I noticed when we walked around Hillhead. There was lots of cows lying down, chewing their cud quite contently, and obviously good rumen health there from that total diet. And the other thing as well, which any of you have been to Hillhead, you know that this is very much the case, is looking at the overall environment, looking at cubicle beds, line space, feed space, access to feed, that we've got a good environment round about to allow the cow to maximise intake of forage. William made the comment yesterday when I was speaking to him that he tends to feed 5% over to make sure there's always feed in front of the cows, they're never ever short of feed, and that obviously helps as well, that they've always got good access. Okay, so moving on, looking at the rest of the feed, what else is in the TMR at Hillhead? So we'll just run through that in terms of, we've got a bit of caustic wheat, maize meal, barley, soya, rape meal, minerals, pot ale syrup and water. And there's the quantities there: 3.5 kilos of caustic wheat, but 2.5 nearly of maize meal, 1.5 of barley, kilo each of soya and rape, some minerals, some pot ale, 2.5 kilos of pot ale and 5.3 kilograms of water. That's something that we've noticed a lot more in probably the last couple of years, adding water into the diet. I think it makes a big difference in terms of both intake and consistency of intake, a lot less sorting, and as a result of that, a lot more consistent muck. William, do you want to comment a little bit on your compact feeding?
Yeah, we've been doing the compact feeding now for 2 years. It was actually one of the things that came out of our first SDF meeting, was to try the compact feeding, and we've been very pleased with how it goes. We're adding the water in and soaking all the concentrates, so that when you go to feed them the next day, it is just a kind of mash. And the big differences we noticed with that is there was much less sorting, and one of the other things we noticed pretty much straight away was an increase in milk quality, that fats went up. So really we're just putting that down to there's obviously less sorting and less of a acidosis risk with these cows since we're on the compact feeding. It's certainly, when you look at the ration, it doesn't maybe look as appealing, because it's more of a kind of, it makes the whole ration a bit stodgier and heavier. But it certainly doesn't seem to affect the cows at all. They seem very happy to eat it, and there seems less sorting. I feel that they're less pushing the silage away. Obviously they're less nosing through looking for concentrates. So yeah, no, we're very pleased. We've been doing it for 2 years, and certainly we've no intention at the moment of stopping it anyway.
Yeah, thanks, William. As I say, we've a number of customers that are doing compact feeding. There's different ways of doing it. Depends a little bit on the practicalities. It can be a bit of a faff trying to add the water, but having geared up for it, it can work quite efficiently. As William said, far more consistent in terms of intake, no sorting, good for milk quality. And what we've tended to find is when you go into it to start with, you're stopping the cows doing what they want to do. So quite often you'll get a drop in milk yield for the first week, 10 days, but then you'll get the benefit later on. So if anybody's going to try it, be patient. Don't give up after 3 days and think this was a waste of time. Give it a bit of time. Do it for at least 10 days before you make your judgment, because usually after that you'll tend to get a little bit lift in milk yield and possibly milk quality as well, as William suggested. You look at the balance of the diet overall, Looking at the diet is made up for about N plus 35, the herd's averaging about 34 at the minute. You'll notice the protein level is quite low, sitting at 16.2%, and I think again that just shows the value of the overall balance of the diet, making sure we've got the energy and protein balance right and the rumen function correctly so that we're getting efficient use of the protein that's fed. We see a big range of crude protein in the diet from probably 16% up to maybe as far as 19%, and it's looking very much at the detail of the type of protein, rumen protein and bypass protein that's balanced along with the energies that's supplied. The starch is nearly 20%, which is probably quite high for a UK diet. Find where we can get higher starch diets in and utilise that protein, it works particularly well. Obviously, again, rumen health is the key here to make sure that the rumen function is not compromised in acidosis, so that's important. And obviously with the fodder beet getting in there as well, the sugar, I tend to normally target 5% sugar in a diet, but you'll see here it's nearly 8% sugar, which is a lot of that's coming from the fodder beet as well. Fibre level, NDF sitting at 45%, again ideal in combination of good quality forage getting in there and not necessarily a lot of fibre coming from concentrate, but relying very heavily on the forages to provide that fibre. And again, that balance is right. If we make the NDF too high, we'll end up compromising intake because there's a limit to how much the cow can eat on a daily basis.
Jimmy, can I jump in? We've got another couple of questions. What dictates how much water you add? I think that one's to Willie. Jimmy, you can add as well.
Basically, when we are adding the water, it depends on what was in it. A lot of people would say you add 1 kilo of water per kilo of concentrate, but we get away with much less than that. We're feeding 2.5 kilos of pot ale syrup, and it goes in the mash, so it's pretty wet. And we're also feeding caustic wheat, which has a lower dry matter because it's already got water in it. So, you know, we basically just try and balance the water so that if you put too much water in, when you empty your mash out the next morning, it's like soup and you're chasing it around about trying to pick it up again. So you want it so that it looks the same as what the brewer's grains or the draft does when it comes out in the morning, that kind of consistency in it. That's how we judge how much water to put in. You're also, depends on your overall dry matter, your whole diet, I suppose. But I think some of them also say that although you might think you've got a lower dry matter silage, that why would you want to add water in? But I think actually adding the water in helps to buffer it, because then they're not getting that slug of concentrates as well, which can help with the acid load. You know, if Jimmy wants to add anything else.
Thank you, Willie.
Yeah, I'll just confirm what you've said, William, that one of the guides is 1 kilo of concentrate, 1 kilo of water per kilo of concentrate, but yeah, it depends what else you want to put in. You want to aim for a total dry matter in the diet, the total diet of between 36 and 38%. So it depends what's going in there. And your comment about the buffering of the water is quite important, because if you think the pH of grass silage is 4, the pH of water is 7. So by nature, putting the water in is actually acting as a little bit of a neutralizer, so it is buffering it a little bit, as well as improving the digestibility of the concentrate. So you're getting a few benefits there. And yeah, it depends on what feeds are all going in there, so that you're getting, and as you described it earlier, William, it does become a fairly solid, stodgy diet, but that seems to work quite well. And we're all told that we should have a nice, light, fluffy, open diet, but in reality, when we look at some of these compact fed diets, they are very solid, and intakes are very good on them. So yeah, I think we possibly rethink how that looks. But I think the overall pH of the diet, pH of the silage, just making wetter silage doesn't constitute compact feeding.
And another question, this is to you, Willie. Jimmy, you can also comment. Can we consider feeding soya alternative? Or have you considered?
Yes. I think it is something that's it's a very hot topic at the moment, and I think it's something that I know some people on contracts that are being forced into doing it, and it is something that we are conscious of. I don't feed as much soy as we used to. We're using a bit more rape meal now. I don't think we'd get away with replacing soya completely with rape meal, as on a grass silage based diet, you know, there is quite a lot of RDP already in the diet, so what we do need a bit of bypass protein. So yeah, I think we'd probably need to look at some of these treated rapeseed meals. You know, on the downside of that, they tend to be a bit lower in energy, so you then get caught in the, well, if you're feeding some of them, you've lowered the energy, you then start needing to feed mega lacquers such like, and you're going, well, you know, they're being frowned on as well. So it's a bit of a catch-22 situation, but I definitely think in the future we possibly will have to cope without soya, and it is, you know, we're definitely trying to use less soy all the time, but yeah, I think we probably will be forced into having to stop feeding it.
Thank you, Willie. Jimmy, any comment?
Not much, because you've explained that extremely well, William. Well done, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something we get requests almost every week about that discussion in terms of the future of soya and diets. Just as William said, we've got that need for bypass protein, and I think trying to achieve that lower crude protein means we need a bit of bypass protein in there. We've got a lot of crude protein, rumen protein coming from the silages, coming from the brewer's grains. So a bit of bypass protein is useful to get that diet to balance. It can come from protected rape rather than necessarily soya, but as William rightly said, it's slightly low energy, so we have to look at all that as well. So yeah, I think it's an ongoing debate, and I think it's something that will evolve. We've looked at numerous diets without soya, and I think going forward it's definitely a real discussion. Where it'll end up, I'm not entirely sure. As we keep having this discussion in terms of where we're going. We know soya works very well, and you'll all be aware soya is extremely expensive at the minute, but when we've looked at some of the diets, you have to feed more of the other product per cow per day. There's not a lot of difference in cost because we have to add more. So yeah, it's an ongoing debate.
Thank you. And sorry, I've got 2 more questions before I let you move on, Jimmy. When we did our practice, we got through it in 15 minutes. We're taking a bit longer today. How long does concentrate need to soak for in compact feeding?
The recommendation is overnight, that you'll put it in the night before and be ready for the next morning, but you can probably get away with 3 or 4 hours. William, you might want to comment on that as well.
We do ours overnight. What we do is after we've got cows all fed and that day, the last thing we do is we load all the concentrates that we need for all the rations in the next day. As we do feed it, it's a single ration to everything, so we put all the concentrates in, and then we soak it and we leave it sitting overnight, and then in the morning it's just a case of emptying out. What you don't, just leaving enough in the wagon for the first load and just emptying the rest out, and then the mash is there then to add into every load. It is a bit of time making up the mash the night before, but it actually saves a lot of time the next day when you go to feed the cows, because you've just got the silage and the whole crop and the draft and stuff, and then the concentrates, it's just a bucket full of that, and then that's you're good to go. So I think the time it takes to do it at night, you save that time. You know, that's all you're messing about, the wee bits and bobs and the minerals and all those things. That's all done in one. So that's the way we do it, and we feel it works very well.
Thank you, Willie. And we've had a kind of comment question here: carbon footprint on your diet, and how does it benchmark? Willie, I know you're going to get some carbon footprinting done, so I think we might be able to talk about that later in the year.
Yeah, we haven't had a carbon footprint done. It's something that we are in the process of looking at the moment, so I couldn't add any comment on that. I'll just add just now when I remember, it's Pomar Silage Plus was the additive we used, since the name's come back to me.
Thank you very much. Right, Jimmy, I think we're good to move on now. Thank you.
I'll just make one comment about carbon footprint, various different aspects of carbon footprint. One is the feeds that you use in the first place. So in general, a kilogram of feed has a kilogram of carbon dioxide equivalent. but there's variation within that. So soya is much higher carbon footprint equivalent than rape meal or homegrown wheat. So that's something we need to look at. But also your carbon footprint is very dependent on what you do with it once you get it on farm. So how you feed it, what your rumen efficiency, a lot of things we've already talked about in terms of how we feed that cow, and therefore then looking at methane emissions, etc., looking at that efficiency. And other things that have an impact in your carbon footprint are things like cull weight and age at first calving, which we'll come on to talk about later as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much, both.
Okay, so moving on, but keeping on the prospect of feed, how much is the diet costing? So currently, and this is through the AHDB KPI Express, which is the graph at the bottom right. So currently the purchased feed cost at Hillhead is 8.4 pence a litre, and the target from the KPIs for high yielding herd is 8.5, which is quite an undertaking. We see a big range of feed costs for high yielding herds, 8 probably being the lowest and very rare, up to well over 10 pence a litre, and often 11 and 12 pence a litre for high yielding herds. And again, it depends a lot on the total impact of the farm, what forage is on farm, what the value of concentrates are relative to the value of forage, whether some of that forage is purchased or not. Interestingly, the purchased forage part of the diet at Hillhead is probably adding another 2 pence a litre on for this year, potentially because William's a little bit tight for silage, so that's an ongoing cost. And it did work out as well, for every 1 pence a litre difference in feed cost for Hillhead, it's worth nearly £43,000. So it's obviously very important to try and keep that minimum and keep reviewing what the feed costs are. And we know that feed costs are always going to be the single biggest cost on any dairy farm. So it's always the one that we need to spend time looking at on a regular basis. Okay. So moving on, my third topic of profitability is fertility. And interestingly, we don't tend to talk too much about fertility when we talk about feed efficiency. We look at milk from forage, we look at feed costs, etc. But in reality, fertility has a big impact on farm efficiency and profitability as well. And I think fertility is one of the things that affect profitability almost the most on any dairy farm. So some figures to look at in terms of what we should be aiming for. Calving interval, and I know a lot of people think that calving interval is an outdated figure and we shouldn't be using it, but it's actually a really good guide and a good place to start. We need to understand how it's made up in an individual herd to know what's the dynamics in there of what that calving interval actually means, but it's a great starting point. Interestingly, UK average calving interval is about 411 days, and that's come down over the last few years. It used to always be 430 days, so we're certainly seeing an improvement in that. And I would say, regardless of system or yield, we're looking for a target of less than 400 days for a calving interval. Hillhead currently is sitting at 386 days calving interval, which I think for the yield that he's doing, 11,000 litres, William, that's a really good calving interval and obviously a big focus on it. Another figure that we talk about and tend to look at when we come down to fertility is pregnancy rate. And that's quite often a difficult one to work out. Some of you will have that worked out by a breeding company, but it's not always the easiest thing to work out. But pregnancy rate comes from the percentage of heat detection that you achieve. So the number of cows that are eligible after calving that are in the herd, and the number you see, which quite often can be 60%. And then your conception rate, so of the ones that you see and serve, how many of them actually hold. And if you take that at 40%, so if we get 60% heat detection rate and 40% conception rate, that would result in a 24% pregnancy rate, which is a figure that I tend to think we should really be aiming for as a minimum. Now, at the minute, Hillhead is sitting about 26%, so that's pretty good in terms of what we're actually achieving on pregnancy rate at Hillhead at the minute. William, do you want to just have a comment in here about how you manage your fertility on the farm in terms of your heat detection and just your comments about fertility? Because as I say, I think it's a very important part of the overall business.
Yeah, fertility is something we put a lot of emphasis on and we spend a lot of time on. For heat detection, we use collars. They're they're Bomatic heat collars that tie into the parlour. I don't think they're any different from many of the other heat collars that are out there. We got on very well with them. But I think in order for a collar to work well, the environment helps. I think ours has helped greatly with the fact that the sand beds, there's a lot of sand about everywhere, so the cows have got plenty of grip. So then they're not afraid to express heat. So therefore, if the cows are showing good strong heats, it makes it easier for the collars to pick them up. We also, we try and watch for heats. So that's the main on the heat detection, but also we make sure that the cows are all, we have a volatile waiting period of 50 days, but we do an after calving check 10 days after the cow's calved. We do another one at 3 weeks, and then we look to monitor heats from then on. And ideally, we would like to see most of the cows having a heat before they get to 50 days. And again, at this heat, the cows are checked to make sure that they're clean. And I think all this to make sure that when these cows get to 50 days, that they're cycling and they're clean and they're ready to be inseminated. So there's a bit of work goes in there, but I think it does reap its rewards. I mean, our heat detection rates I'm pretty pleased with them. We have very few cows that we need to present to the vet as non-bullers. We don't use any synchronisation programs of any kind. There'll be, if we have a cow that's a non-bull and she's not cycling, we will give her a jag estromate or perhaps put a seether in her. But it's not a routine thing. It's the odd cow here and there it gets done, and obviously try to get the intakes and the energy in the cows as good as possible to help with conception rates. I know our conception rates are only 35%, which is probably on the low side, but I think for the amount of milk some of the cows is given, it's acceptable. But our submission rate is up at 76%, which is what gets us our preg rate, because we're getting those cows served. I think that's pretty much what we do to focus on our fertility work.
Okay, thanks, William. One thing as well, I was just thinking in terms of targets, that obviously William's got 400 cows, which means ideally he really wants 1 calving a day or just over that. And to achieve that, therefore we're looking for 30 calving a month, 35 calving a month. And to get that at the 35% conception rate means we're probably needing the best part of 90 services a month between cows and heifers, and it's a really good way to keep track of it. If you're not up at that kind of level, then you're not going to have enough pregnant, so therefore we need to do something about it. It's an easy way to just keep checking whether we're on track to get that number of pregnancies throughout the year. Interesting, the cost of infertility, I was just sort of working out from William, is 25 days better than average in terms of calving interval, and figure of £3 a day is recognised for that, so that's worth about £30,000 to William to keep on top of that to achieve that better fertility targets. What else? Well, we've mentioned some of these as well in terms of what we want to look at. Stems back right from dry cow management, make sure the cows are in good condition and good energy balance at that point, and therefore getting through the calving and transition experience with no problems. William's mentioned earlier, lactation nutrition is key to make sure negative energy balance isn't too severe in that first month post calving. We know that intakes will be slightly down, but we need to make sure again environment's good to encourage intakes to make sure that works. Heat detection, William made a comment about environment. I've seen that so often that either overstocking or floors are not good enough, that we then have difficulty with heat detection. Any of you that have got an outside area that cows go to, they'll tend to go outside to bull. It was a good place to pick up heat detection. And also need to just review AI technique and timing. Again, we've come across problems where timing can be a little bit out, especially if you move to a different technique of heat detection, to make sure that you know what the system's telling you, to make sure we serve in plenty of time. And another factor that affects it as well, I'm not a vet, so I'm not getting into any details here, but herd disease can be an issue as well, in terms of sometimes cows holding on to embryos. So again, just something to bear in mind, which again ties in with environment, etc. Okay, so we'll move on to the fourth topic, which is family or young stock, which again an important part of the herd going forward. And made the comment that it's the future of the dairy herd, and it is. We've got to look after our young stock and make sure they come into the herd well grown and ready to produce milk for us. In terms of targets for young calves, colostrum is absolutely key. If we get that wrong, the calf's life is probably compromised from then on. So we need to make sure good quality, quantity of colostrum. It's got to be done quickly, and it's got to be very clean. William mentioned about hygiene in his introduction, making sure that that's as good as possible. I think that's important. Also looking at making sure calves have the opportunity to get as much milk as possible. And I've put a comment on there on the slide that a suckled calf at that age would probably drink between 10 and 12 litres of milk per day. And we don't tend to think that a dairy calf would eat that kind of quantity of milk, but we have a few herds that we've got calves drinking up high volumes of milk, and it's working well. We're getting good healthy calves and good growth rates. And the target is probably to double birth weight by weaning, and as a good mark to have that by 8 to 10 weeks. So what weight are they at birth? Probably 42 to 45 kilos. So therefore we're looking at them to be 90 kilos, maybe even 100 kilos by the time we wean them. And the question there, do you wean your calves? Do you weigh your calves, sorry, do you weigh your calves and know what they are at birth, know what they are at weaning? William, do you want to comment a little bit just on your early calf management?
Yep, that is something that we try to put a lot of emphasis on. We've got quite a strict colostrum protocol that the target is to get a minimum of 4 litres of colostrum into them within 2 hours of birth. We will give them 5 litres if they'll take 5 litres, but we're content with 4. We try and get most of them to suck it from a teat, but if they won't, they will be tubed. So yeah, a lot of focus on that, and we try to get the colostrum harvested from the cows and in the fridge as quickly as possible, and we always keep 5 litres in the fridge so that if the night milkers are finishing at 11:30 at night and there's a cow calved, they know that calf's to be fed and hutched up before they go home. And we're very fortunate that the staff all buy into that, and they do that. That they're quite often, you'll see we keep a record of what time of calves get their first feed at. We'll actually keep it up for the first four feeds when they're on, kind of try to get decent quality colostrum into them for that period of time. And it's quite regular. You'll see that they'll put the time up that they're fed a calf at 12:30 at night, which is fortunate. I think that's one of the good things with also with the 3 times a day milking, that we have staff about a lot of the time to get that colostrum into them early. And we're aiming for, we are feeding 4 litres of milk twice a day, so we're not quite hitting the 8 to 12 litres. I think if we wanted to go more than 4 litres, I don't know if I would do it in one feed, that we would possibly then need to want to feed them 3 times a day to get higher levels. But we don't weigh our calves as such at birth. We do weigh band them to a certain extent, but I'm not just convinced how accurate the weigh band is. But we've now got a policy of when the calf comes out the calf hutch, on its move, it goes over the weigh scales. So we are the kind of range that we're weaning calves at tends to be maybe 85 to fully 100 kilos. We can quite regularly be weaning calves that are 100 kilos. So I'm fairly confident that although we're not weighing them at birth, that we are at least doubling that birth weight.
Okay, thanks, William.
Laurie, I had a question for Willie as well.
Yeah.
Do you treat calves with any additional to crypto as well as your increased hygiene? So are you treating them with anything?
No, we're not treating them with anything else. Just we treat them with colostrum.
And the quality of your colostrum, are you testing it, and if so, how?
Yes, we test it all with we're currently using a colostrum, the one that you drop in the colostrum and it floats.
Yep.
Colostrometer, yeah.
We have used our refractometer in the past, but we found that after a period of time it became hard to read. So we do all colostrum is tested, and only good quality colostrum is kept for feeding calves.
Thank you. Jimmy?
Yeah, and there's obviously a lot of evidence to show that first 8 weeks of the calf's life is so important for its future. So all the things William said there, just to get that calf off to the right start is well worth the investment in time and money. So moving on from there, what we're trying to aim for, daily live weight gain, I would say for a Holstein of 0.8 kilos daily live weight gain, and aiming to bull at 13.5 months, give or take. And the weight at bulling, 60% mature weight. So for a Holstein, that's probably going to be between 380 and 400 kilos at 13.5 months. And that way we'll then achieve a calving at 22 to 24 months. So in terms of UK average for age at first calving is still 28 months. And interestingly, there's been a lot of discussion about 24-month calving for years, but age at first calving is still averaging about 28 months. At Hillhead, we're sitting at 25 months at the minute. So not quite in 24, but they are nearly there, and I think that's a target to aim for going forward. Again, there's a lot of evidence to show that if we grow them correctly to get them to bulling and calving weight and size, then there's a good opportunity for that calf going into the herd, both in terms of first lactation milk yield and subsequent milk yield as well. There's benefit from that well-grown heifer, but again, just to emphasise, that stems right back from the first weeks of that calf's life. We can't just automatically switch to 24-month calving. We need to have that as part of the whole farm policy from calf rearing upwards. But you can see they are going from 28 months down to 24 months. AHDB have produced a figure of £2.31 a day benefit. So for a herd the size of Williams, going from 28 to 24 would be worth 37,000. And even for William, going from 25 months to 24 months is worth about just over £9,000. William, do you want to make a comment in here about this at a follow-on stage? And I know it's something we've had a little bit of discussion about.
Yes, it's one of the areas we're trying to have a bit of focus on at the moment, and we're I would say it is something that one of the areas we are struggling with. As I say, we're quite on with weighing calves regularly. They get weighed at weaning, and then we're weighing them every 6 weeks after that. And we find that when they're here at Hillhead, after they're weaned and they're in a straw pen, and they're on 4 kilos of concentrate and hay, that we're really pleased with the growth rates and how the calves are doing there. But then between 5 and 6 months, we take them over to the young stock unit, and they go there and they move into cubicles and they go into a silage-based diet. And we're really just struggling there. They find the calves are taking quite a check at that point. And last winter the weights were disappointed. We hadn't been weighing them a lot, and we had no weighing facilities over there. And when we brought them back, some of them hoping to be ready for AIing, that some of them weren't heavy enough. So we've invested in our set of weigh scales. So we've got weigh scales at the farm, and we've been weighing them once a month this winter. But we've stepped up the concentrate level from last year, and I feel the silage is better than last year, but we're still struggling to get those calves performing the way we would like, particularly in that first couple of months when they go there. We can find that that some of them, the initial weight gains in that first month or two after the move over there are pretty poor. Whether it's, I can't really try to struggle what is causing this. And we're presuming it's just the move from a very dry diet going on to a silage-based diet that they're just struggling with.
Okay, I think that's an interesting point of discussion in terms of how we get these calves to that stage when they're at the young stage of obviously the rumen is still developing, and I find that transition going from a sort of straw and concentrate diet or haylage and concentrate diet onto a silage based diet can be quite difficult as that rumen develops and getting used to digesting the forage. And I have a dilemma in this one in terms of, I know the price of straw this year, so the sooner we can get them onto silage, the better. But I find when we've got good quality forage, the intakes are quite good. But the difficulty with that is at a young age, they struggle to digest it relative to concentrate, and therefore they don't grow as well, and they tend to get a little bit of a pot belly from that. So I think it's a difficult one in terms of how soon they can go into silage that we're relying on. The level of concentrate you're feeding just now, William, should be enough. On good quality silage, usually 1 to 2 kilograms of concentrate is plenty, especially once they get to 9 months old. If it's sort of average to poor silage, 3 kilograms of concentrate would be sufficient. Anybody that's got calves and or heifers and straw for longer, they probably need the best part of 4 kilograms of concentrate to achieve that sort of 0.8 kilograms growth. Whether it's worth keeping the younger calves on the haylage and concentrate for a bit longer, just to let the rumen develop a bit more before they go into that silage, as well as the move to the other place. But I don't know how practical that is, William.
Yeah, that's one of the dilemmas when they're not here. That on the other farm, there's not staff there all the time. So
yep.
You know, really we're going across, and it's a bit away. So ideally, I would like to just get away with feeding them concentrates once a day. And I don't know if on a straw-based diet, when they're needing 4 kilos of concentrates, whether you would get away with feeding 4 kilos in the one feed. I don't know if there's anybody listening that has any experience of trying this to you know, whether it does work, or you know, I'm open for suggestions.
Got a couple of questions here as well. One of them is, are your young stock grazed at all?
They are, yes, and some of those ones from about 6 months of age go out to grass, and you know, last summer the ones we weren't a bit concerned about it, but the ones from 6 months maybe up to 9 months, we gave them a couple of kilos of concentrates at grass, and then from 9 months through to 13 months we gave them about a kilo, and we actually found last summer the growth rates were very good in these calves. We do then house them after that to AI, because we're AI and everything. We don't have a bull as such, that it's a lot easier AI and heifers when they're in the shed. So then we'll house them over the AI period, and then once they're confirmed back in calf, they go outside and they'll only be housed then a month before calving when they join your dry cows.
Thank you, Willie. And there was another question on vaccinations. What's your vaccination protocol for your heifers? So that's probably back a stage at babies and right through.
The only thing we vaccinate heifers for is pneumonia. They get vaccinated with Bovipast at a fortnight old, and then 4 weeks again after that, so they're fully vaccinated before they leave the hutches. But that's the only vaccination we do.
Thank you. And can I just say, if anyone's got any comments or questions again for Willie and Jimmy, please just put them in the chat box and we'll try and answer it. And if anyone's got any experience with the feeding or transition from straw to silage, again, please shout up. Jimmy, have you got any further comments?
Yeah, okay. I was just going to say that I would probably say splitting that feed into two times 2 kilos would be better, William, but I appreciate the labour and just the practicalities of that. It does become quite difficult.
We've actually had a comment in. So someone here is feeding the heifers in straw and 4 kilos of concentrate in one feed, and they are by far the best growing and high achieving heifers compared to feeding silage.
Yep. I would concur with that, and it's just the 4 kilos just in one feed, but that's obviously working well, and yeah, that's obviously getting good growth rates out of that.
Good, that's good to hear.
Okay, so can I just sort of summarise where we've come from? As I say, it was a pleasure to go around Hillhead and just see what William's achieving. So looking at the milk from forage, obviously trying to continue to achieve that 4,000 litres from forage is key, and just keeping an eye on feed costs in terms of going forward, how that balances in terms of cost per litre, and I'm quite interested to always compare margin per cow, looking at maximise and milk yield, but making sure we're keeping an eye on costs. I've got maintain and improve pregnancy rates. We're starting from a pretty high figure, sitting at 26, with a few herds that are probably doing slightly higher than that, 27, 28, but yeah, up at that kind of level is fantastic. And just keeping an eye on heifers and young stock, even more so weighing calves at weaning, weighing the replacement heifers more so, as William's suggesting, and then just review the diets as we've just been discussing, just to look at how we can get over that check period for that few months to get them a little bit bigger, and maybe something we need to look at in terms of how we can make that transition just that little bit better, to try and get down to, I've got 22 to 24 months there, but even if that's 23, 24 months, it's certainly a target that we need to be aiming for. Okay, so thanks very much, William. As I say, it's been a pleasure being round Hillhead and having discussions with you, and I'll hand back to Sophie.
Thank you, Jimmy. Willie, I've got a couple more questions coming in. There's a wee bit of a delay, I think, between me asking them and them coming in. So there's someone else commenting here that they go into a TMR at 100 days with 2 kilos of cake, 4 kilos of silage and 4 kilos of whole crop with 1 kilo of straw, and the heifers do great on them. And another question for Jimmy, at what is the youngest age you should introduce silage to a heifer?
You can do it younger than this, but I would tend to suggest 8 or 9 months, because I find that works quite well. Interestingly, back to the comment about whole crop, heifers and calves do well in whole crop as well, just making sure the protein levels balanced. But yeah, young stock can grow very well in whole crop.
Good. Willie, another question for you. Someone's asking here, no vaccination for IBR, BVD and lepto?
No, we've got a closed herd, and we're all ring fenced, with the fact the cows are inside all the time, but we're all in a kind of ring fenced. You know, the Clyde is a lot of our boundary, and we've got another boundary, it's trees. So we'll have no contact with our livestock, and we keep it closed, so we don't vaccinate.
Thank you. Okay, Jimmy, we're ready to move on.
Okay, thanks. Sophie, it's back to you really, just in terms of upcoming events.
Yeah, I've got a few upcoming events, and there's a couple of things to mention afterwards to do with the milk from forage as well. So upcoming events, our next strategic dairy farm for Millins in Ayrshire, which is the Hendry Brothers, is on improving fertility in the spring block calving herd. That's next Wednesday. We also have, as Jimmy mentioned, forage and grazing sessions. The first one is groundworks for grazing and forage really, and Jimmy touched a little bit on it, and I'll be joined by Jimmy again on Tuesday the 2nd of February. So please get in touch if you want to get involved with that one. It'll be more of a Teams call, not so much as a webinar, so a lot more interaction hopefully for you guys. We've got everything's online just now, I'm afraid, because we can't come and pester you on farm, so a little bit of on-farm communication, trying to improve that. We've been working with some really good dairy farmers across the country, and we're also putting on one for herd managers. So if anyone's interested in going on it themselves or putting their herd manager onto it, there's a few sessions throughout February coming up. And Willie, the next time we bother you is April, so you've got a wee break from us for a while, and it'll be genomics versus reality. So I think you did some genomic testing on heifers just over 2 years ago, and they're now milking and in the herd, so we'll see how they're performing against what the genomic testing came back for that. Is there anything else you want to add to that, Willie?
No, that's pretty much it. It's 2 years just now since we did the genomics, and we looked at, we had a meeting in April 2019, and we looked at the genomic results of these heifers. So now the most of them, a lot of them have completed a lactation, and the rest of them are certainly well through their first lactation. So we're going to have a bit of an analysis and look to see how these heifers have performed compared to what the paper said they would.
Let's see how that one goes. Thank you, Jimmy. Can you move on one more now? So a few of you have asked, how do you measure your milk from forage, things like that. You, as a levy payer, have free access to the AHDB KPI Express tool. Following the webinar, you'll get an email with a link that takes you to it. and you can sign up for free, log on and update it as often as you want. And it also not only has got milk from forage, but also your feed costs, so you can put it in and compare to whether you're all year round calving, block calving. And if you need any help with it, please give myself or Doreen Anderson, who works alongside me in Scotland, give either of us a call or drop us an email. And there's loads of resources on there as well that you as levy payers pay for, and they're free for you to use and make use of. And as are Doreen and I, we're here to help you in any way we can, so please do keep in touch. Jimmy, anything else you want to add about the benchmarking?
No, it's a great way of just comparing your performance, and you can put as much or as little as you want in to look at different aspects of the farm, just to do a bit of comparison, see when you compare with the rest. So no, really interesting.
Thank you. It's a really good starter as well. It's an easy one to get started on. Next up, Jimmy. There's another smiley one. Yeah, thank you very much everyone for your time today. We always really appreciate taking time out your busy schedules to join us. Willie, thank you very much for your time and input and for sharing everything again. And Jimmy, thank you very much for your time as well. If you want to keep in touch with anything you haven't asked or you feel like asking later on when it comes to your mind, just drop us an email. Sophie Brewster, Jimmy Goldie. And yeah, thank you very much for your time today, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.